Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Shaftsbury School District Annual Meeting. It's 6:31, I guess. We'll start with the pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I'll start with the Shaftsbury School warning. The legal voters of Shaftsbury Town School District qualified to vote in school meetings are hereby notified to meet at the elementary school in said town on Monday, March 4th, 2013 at 6:30 p.m. to transact the following business specified below, to be done from the floor. Following completion of such business, the meeting will stand adjourned until 7 a.m. Tuesday, March 5th, 2013 at the Village Firehouse to act on these articles set forth below that are to be voted on by Australian ballot. On March 5th, 2013, the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Business to be transacted from the floor on Monday, March 4th, 2013. Article 1, to hear the reports of the school board and other officers of the district and take action thereon. So I'll go over my report. Okay, the school board, as usual, is working hard for our academics and economy for the school district itself. We have an excellent staff, teachers. Despite all the challenges, we're working out fine. We have the new storage building in the back that we started last year. That is now completed and is paid for, thanks to the people that have donated time and labor. We ended up with a generator from the middle school. It's 8 years old, but it's just like new. There's hardly any hours on it. We ended up with that for $1, and that is installed in the back. We purchased that for $1. It's good to have so we can have our own evacuation center here in the town. It will benefit this town. The proposed budget shows an increase in the expenditures. Article 8, it's the reserve building repairs renovations reserve fund, $124,000. The $124,000 this is the second year for that. That will give us monies to repair the roofs or any big major repairs that are coming down. I felt it's a lot cheaper than going out for a bond by putting this voted on a separate article. We're presenting the budget. The increase in the Shaftsbury budget is 1.25 cents to the Shaftsbury, and if you add in the MAU, it's up about 2.5 cents. And I did have the wrong date in here in my annual. It says meeting on, I got March 5th, it's supposed to be March 4th, so I did catch that. And we have Jim Harwood, our principal. This is his last meeting, so he'll be retiring, and we shall go from there. Jim, you want to do your report next?
You have to ask the voters.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I have to ask the voters. Jim is not a resident of Shaftsbury, and is it a problem that he can speak and give his report? No problem? No. Thank you, Betty. No problem. You should be up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. I certainly want to thank all the community members and the board for 5 wonderful years here at Shaftsbury School. As I sat thinking about what I might say this evening and wrote down some of the things that have happened over the 5 years that I have been here, the word change really came up over and over to me. We have a huge change, I think, in our students who are attending. In 2008-2009 school year, we had 193 students at Shaftsbury School. This year, we're serving 235 students here at Shaftsbury School, so we've had just a wonderful growth. The other change that we have had 5 years ago coming here, we had 12 classrooms, and with increased enrollment, we have grown to 13 classrooms. And we have, through retirements, 7 new classroom teachers here at Shaftsbury School. So more than half of the staff, classroom teachers, are new to Shaftsbury School classrooms. And so that has presented some exciting times for us. A huge change for the town of Shaftsbury has been the change in the number of students who qualify for free and reduced lunches. In 8 years ago, Shaftsbury's free and reduced lunch rate, students who could have free or reduced lunch, was about 15%, mid-teens. This year, we have grown, and it's grown steadily to 43% of our population is free and reduced students here in Shaftsbury. When we look at, and it's one snapshot, the NECAP, the New England assessment that is done once each year in reading and in writing and in math, and then in science, if you looked at the numbers, the percentage of students being proficient or proficient with distinction has pretty much remained level and not shown a huge increase, although there are some little blips where we've shown some nice growth in especially in writing and science. But if you were to look at from 2005 through 2012, we have been at a little below, a little above the state average in terms of how our students are performing on that one particular test. I personally believe that we can do better. And I think that we are starting to do better through some of the changes that have been supported by the board and the staff has worked very hard at. The first thing that we as a school community, staff tackled was looking at writing, providing professional development for our total staff, and then looking at best practice and what materials would best serve our students. We started looking at that in 2008, 2009. Our previous writing scores before that, again, had been at about state average, 55% of our students meeting or exceeding the standard. The first year after implementing the new writing program, we jumped to 86% of our students who were being proficient or proficient with distinction. The same was true as we started looking at science and that 4th grade test. Our scores, again, were consistent with state average. And as soon as we looked at our writing, the 4th grade teachers who administer the test looked at what were the areas that our students were not performing well in. And it was constructive response, writing a response to a question on there. And we were failing, I shouldn't say failing, our students were not being proficient because they were missing questions. Instead of getting 4 points on a question, they were getting 1 or 2. So for 2 years in a row, we did some short-term remedial targeting students who had performed poorly on that constructed response and gave them an intense instruction for that 4-week period, and our scores jumped to 64 and 73% of our students meeting or exceeding the standard in science. The other area that we next moved to was looking at math, trying to decide how could we better present material to our students. We were working with materials that were 16 to 17-year-old material that was not a standard-based material for instruction. So we're really putting our students at a disadvantage using that older material. We changed materials. We have new materials now that are standard-based, number one. We had year-long professional development here at Shaftsbury School with every staff member participating in that instruction, and we had a 12% increase in students being proficient or proficient with distinction this year. So I think those are the bright spots that I have noticed over the 5 years, we're on track in terms of improving our writing. We're on track improving our science and math. We're looking at reading presently, working with the supervisory union. We have 2 years ago implemented a primary reading program that is highly structured and phonetic. I think it will begin to have a huge impact upon how our students perform on this particular test. Here at Shaftsbury School, we really have purchased a number of new technology pieces of equipment and programs that are used daily here at the school. Smartboard technology, laptops. I think that this school is better equipped than any school in Southwest Supervisory in terms of technology. And much of that came from funding through the estate of Ann Kipp that was left to the school. The board and myself have now started transitioning and putting into the budget a line for technology so that after 3 years, the budget will sustain good technology growth. I think we're on track, and I think we're doing a fine job, and I think we can do better. I do want to recognize Jane DeSanto for more than 20 years of service to Shaftsbury School. Jane is a fifth grade teacher this year, and she will be retiring, and I certainly want to wish Jane the very best in her retirement. I will just close again by thanking the board for their support, allowing me to be a member of the Shaftsbury community. Shaftsbury is a great place to work and be part of. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions of my reporter, Jim's? Yes?
What is the capacity of these school buildings?
Okay, as far as students, well, years ago we had 387 in this school. A while ago we had 320. Right now it's about 235.
Thank you.
So we can take more, but depending on the bunch of students that you take, there are going to be costs. If you take too many, then you have to hire teachers, obviously. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. One thing I'll go ahead.
Average class size?
I think it's about 18.
Our lowest class size in the school would be 15 students, largest is 22. Average class size is 18.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hearing no other questions, we'll move on. Okay, next Article 2 is to see, I know one thing I forgot, and I'm sorry, I apologize. I forgot to introduce the school board. On my far left is Larry Johnson, next Pat Harris, David Durfee. Jen Arlotta isn't here tonight. And we have Jim Harwood, obviously, and Donna Leap from Supervisory Union, and Richard Bumps, the recorder on the far end. Apologize. Okay. Article 2, to see if the district will authorize the school board to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of taxes and state aid to meet current expenses before taxes are collected and issue interest-bearing orders thereon. Do I have a motion? That's a second. Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Article 3, to see what sum the district will vote to pay its officers for...
Fran, sorry, you should say all opposed.
All...
He just has a matter.
All opposed. I guess there wasn't any.
No, I know, but...
Okay, good. Thank you. Next one, I'll get it on. Article 3, to see what sum the district will vote to pay its officers for the ensuing year. Right now, it's $800. Do I hear a motion to keep it the same?
So moved.
Okay.
The officer means the school board member?
Yes. Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Guess none. All in favor? Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay. Next, Article 4, to hold a public informational hearing on articles to be voted on by Australian ballot on March 5th, 2013. Article 5, to transact any other business found proper when met. Business to be transacted by Australian ballot on Tuesday, March 5th, 2013. Article 6, to elect one school board director for a 3-year term. Article 7, to elect one school board director for a 2-year term. Article 8, shall the voters of the Shaftsbury Town School District raise $124,000 by taxes to be deposited into the building major repairs renovations reserve fund during the 2013-14 school year. Article 9, shall the voters of the Shaftsbury Town School District appropriate $3,184,225 for the support of its school for the year beginning July 1, 2013. Dated this day, 29th day of January 2013 at Shaftsbury, Vermont. One thing I want to say before we adjourn, I want to publicly thank Jim Harwood for all his help with the school. He's a real kid principal. I know that sounds funny, but he's really for students. And watching him during the day here when I come in, it's a special thing to have. So he will be hard to replace. So, Jim, I wanted to just say that.
Thank you.
Any other board members have anything they want to? Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Karen?
Fran, sorry, I came in late.
Yep.
So I don't know if it was discussed at all. I'm just curious with the situation over in North Bennington, being as it is.
Yeah.
There seemed to be some uncertainty the last time I had heard regarding special ed students and whether they were actually going to be able to offer the full array of special ed services
Yeah.
to the children. And I'm wondering, how could that potentially impact the Shaftsbury School? In other words, if you had a student's parents over there and their needs were not able to be met,
Right.
And they were, say, from our district, our ID district,
Right.
Perhaps the logical choice for them would be to come to Shaftsbury. And I shouldn't even just say special ed students, but any
Right.
students. And I'm just wondering, and maybe you've already answered this before I walked in.
No, we didn't. That hasn't come up.
I'm wondering in terms of how we can best accommodate, and what does that mean in terms of, the funding?
Yeah. To my knowledge, Karen, the funding, if we do something like that, will follow that student. They have to pay for the severity of it or anything. They will have to, those funds will come from that school district. Unless it's changed. I haven't heard anything unless somebody else has, but this is all up in the air, and I don't even think they've finished that. They had to do another budget or something, and I don't know if that's in there or not. I haven't followed it for probably a couple of months now, because everything is still up in the air, so I couldn't say unless, like I say, somebody else has, but I don't think so.
But from what you were saying about the numbers earlier, it sounds as though, indeed, we would have space to accommodate
Right,
students.
right.
And
Well,
we have a tuition policy at this point here?
yes, yeah. But what we're going to do first is you've got to save some spaces. If, we have Shaftsbury residents move in, then we're going to have those students get first bids, obviously. The next thing, we're going to have to look at our tuition policy, and we have, but we're going to do it again, obviously, because we've had some interest from other districts, too, that may want to send their kids here. And right now, and I've talked with Jim on this a little bit, right now we could probably take, say, 38 to 40 students. But it's going to be hard to, we got the Shaftsbury residents that come first. Let's say we get some from North Bennington, for the sake of argument. Let's say maybe we get some from Bennington. I don't know. And nobody's given me hard facts or anything yet, so I kind of apprehensive to even talk about it at this point. But we will be, when we do talk about the tuitioning thing, I'm sure we'll let enough people know so we can get some input from the community and other places. So, Tyler?
Are you saying there's no policy now if students from North Bennington want to come here, or if students from Shaftsbury ID want to come here,
Well, we do have a tuitioning policy, yes.
they have to pay tuition?
Right, yes. Yeah, they would.
Full rate.
Yeah, and any extra, let's say you have a severe student, and if it's $100,000 for the sake of argument, they would have to pay that fee to the Shaftsbury School. It gives you an example. I mean, that's what they're looking at.
Would you give preference to the Shaftsbury ID people?
I would. That's kind of a touchy issue, but I would, but anyway. Shaftsbury first, then Shaftsbury ID, then whoever else may want to come. Any other, yes?
The question, Karen mentioned something about SPED, special education. Could you very quickly, it's still early, but give us some idea about what mandates we have from the state, if any, and from the federal government about how these children are handled in the
Well, mandates that we have, if we get, for the sake of argument, let's say we get 5 severe special ed students here, and they're Shaftsbury residents. They're ours. And you will pay, it's the law that we educate these kids in this school system. I don't see any way out of that, and the feds have cut back on funds and everything else, so it's basically, if a child comes in, it's $100,000, we're going to pay the $100,000. Years ago, we used to have some students that went to the Perkins School for the Blinds. We had 2 of them. They were like $125,000, $35,000 apiece. But you have to pay that. You do get some reimbursement. It's right now reimbursement would be, I think, 50%, Jim. But you're still going to pay that money up front, and then you'll get the reimbursement after the fact. So it's kind of touchy with that, but if they're Shaftsbury students, you got to take them. You don't have a choice.
Just go a little bit further.
Yeah.
Are there mandates about whether all kids who have special needs are within the same classrooms with all the other kids who don't have those needs? Or could they be shuttled to a different classroom, for example, and only those kids?
Right now, the deal is those kids will be integrated into the regular classroom. So that might mean maybe you have to hire some paras, some extra people to handle the child, depending on the severity of the child. But that's, usually it's the parents, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Jim, could you speak?
Right now, here at Shaftsbury, 99% of our children are having their needs met, both regular education students and special education students within the classroom. So a very small percentage of students are participating in a out-of-district program in Bennington. There is a process that special education students who have not been identified go through. Parent need to approve that we're going to go forward with testing. A disability needs to be identified. And then as that process continues, does the disability of the child requires specialized instruction. Some of that specialized instruction could take place outside the classroom, 30 minutes a day for instance, in reading instruction if that was part of the child's disability. But here at Shaftsbury, the majority of our services are taking place in the classroom.
Is that by law?
The state is pretty clear. When we were just in, and Donna certainly can speak to it better, we just had a special education department come down and look at our programming. And one of the concerns that they had, not here at Shaftsbury, but at some schools, that a larger percentage of students that they would hope for were participating in pull-out programs for more than 80 to 90% of their time. The state really is very interested in having special education students participate with their peers. It is law, yes.
Fran, is there a point in assessing a child's needs for SPED as to, it sounds unkind, but I can't think of a better word, to make sure they are educable? And if they're below that line, are they still getting teachers or caregivers, or, I mean, what do you have established as programs that's inclusive for all of the children?
Yeah, in all honesty, that would be the Director of Special Ed, which would be Kathy Buck. I think they have to sit down with the parents and the teachers.
We
But Jim
do.
could speak to it a lot better
Sure.
than I can. 'Cause it's-
During the planning meetings, when we're writing an IEP, the parents, the people who have done the testing, the classroom teachers will all participate in what sort of program best meets the child's needs. Is there a point at which some children we could say will better be served in a program outside of Shaftsbury School? Yes, and that has happened. And I don't think you're being cruel when you ask that question. I think it's a very good question. It's not a large number of students.
Now, next question then, those students that you're talking about being outside,
Sure.
are we talking about a residential
No.
program somewhere?
No.
else?
Not for us presently. It certainly has happened historically, I
It
think,
could be.
here
It could
at
be.
Shaftsbury. It could be, but presently we do not have any in that kind of programming. The SU, through other districts, has developed or have developed programming to meet the needs of children who have been identified with a particular learning disability, and they are in one particular classroom or two. Yeah. So we're really how do I say this? We're getting a pretty good bargain when we do have to place a child outside when we participate in the programming that the SU, the supervisory union, has developed in other districts. It's not nearly as expensive as a residential.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, one more question. Did I see in a pie chart that the cost for special ed is 25%? Is that for Shaftsbury? Was that?
I guess I'd have to see where we're talking in terms of numbers. The cost of special education is much higher than for regular education students. So that your point is, if that is your point, you're absolutely right. I just don't know what pie chart.
Page 13.
Okay. That would be total within that particular graph, I believe, is for Shaftsbury. So it would be 26% of our total budget. But you need to realize, and I think Fran left off the point, it shows it as an expense, as a total expense, but we're getting reimbursed from the federal government. About 50% of every dollar spent, we will get reimbursed through the federal government. And that's remained consistent for us. I don't see that changing. There have been other federal grants that are starting to go away a little bit, but I don't believe that is one.
At present, do you have any self-contained special ed classes in the school?
No, we do not.
Everybody's mainstream?
That's correct.
Yes.
Could you explain what the Shaftsbury ID district is? Is that in the town of Shaftsbury?
Well, it's in Shaftsbury. It's basically Parent Acres, Harvest Hills, in that area, over by Whitman's Feed Store. That's Shaftsbury ID. It's Shaftsbury, but their kids go to the North Bennington School.
And why is that?
It's just something the legislature done, I forget how many years ago, back, Alice?
1878.
78, okay,
1878.
okay. So that's why it's where it's at. That's okay, it was answered, Alice, of the ID district when it was formed.
We get a little closer.
You talk at the mic right
Got
there.
a cold, so I'm all stuck.
Oh, okay.
What did you ask me about?
No, the Shaftsbury ID district when it was formed.
Why is it here?
And why is it there?
Somebody,
Well, I think I can say some of it. If you look at the map of the town of Shaftsbury in, say, 1869, the Fears Atlas map, there were something like 17 school districts in this town. And each one of them had a little one-room schoolhouse. And District 1 happened to be the closest to North Bennington. And for some,
Tyler, I want to interrupt you a little bit. Can you go right to the mic so they can hear you?
yeah.
Thank you.
I can't answer the why, but I can answer the when and what happened. I mean, as I say, there were 17 school districts in this town at one time in the 1870s. And District 1 happened to be the closest to North Bennington. And the legislature, in its wisdom, decided that those kids should go to North Bennington School because it was so close. And so that kind of locked in permanently to this situation that we deal with today. So those people who live in that district pay their town taxes to Shaftsbury, and they pay their school taxes to North Bennington. And that's the way it is. If you ask me the why, you know,
No, I asked
you
that.
can figure it
That's
out
not
as-
what he wanted to know. You just gave him the answer. Thank you.
let me just add that that's one story. But the story I grew up, I've been living here since I was 11 years of age, and the reason I heard is that when either school needed a basketball player, they just redrew the lines to pick up people like me who are only 6 feet tall.
Okay. Thank you, Alice. Any other questions? Tim?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I just wanted to say, I guess, a personal goodbye to Mr. Harwood. I came here in 2010. My daughter is now in 3rd grade. I'm retired, so I've had the luxury of being fairly active in the school. And every day that I've been here, I've been more impressed with Mr. Harwood. And every day since he said he was going to retire, I've been more distressed about that. But so many things that he has brought to this school, and the proof of the pudding, they say, is in the eating. And one thing you can see is that while places like North Bennington are worried about losing students to the point of considering drastic measures, Shaftsbury's school enrollment has been going up. And it's because people like me and other people have been coming to this school district because it is such a good school. And Mr. Harwood is a big part of that, and the things that he has done from, I mean, I can start with the fact that he knows every day where every kid goes home. I've had conversations with him about what bus my child took 2 days ago, and he could still tell me that he knew that she got on such and such bus, to the writing program that he was just talking about that he implemented. And I saw the results from that. They were presented at school boards, and his knowledge as an educator and what writing can do for students showed up in math and science and reading. And his grasp of the financials, his grasp of the history, all those things have been such a comfort. I came from a place, I came from Texas, okay. So I came from a place where you know, you look to your elected officials, your school officials with worry, hoping that they would do the right thing. And I come to a place like this where our school is run by somebody who knows so much more about education than I would even think to ask. And it's been a pleasure personally to work with him. It's been a pleasure professionally to see how he's run the school, and I just wanted to say that thank you and good luck, and wish you weren't leaving.
Thanks, Tim. Any other questions? Tyler?
Can anybody explain why the school enrollment is going up and the population is going down?
Alice?
Making more babies.
I think it's because it's such a good school to come to. It may, or somebody's having more kids. Any other questions? Hearing none, needing to move to adjourn. Is there a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.